Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Today we're coming to you from the dry dock in my dining room. It's a little too small to handle a full-sized Iowa-class battleship, but at 1/300 scale it works just fine. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the coolest museum ships on the Delaware River. That is the tugboat Jupiter. We had the opportunity to visit and tour Jupiter last week. However, I dropped the microphone over the side of the ship promptly upon boarding, and so we weren't able to film anything on site. So we plan on going back and filming more about Jupiter. In the meantime, we're going to make a video talk a little bit about her history and the shipyard that built her, which has a really cool story that we otherwise haven't had the chance to talk about on this channel. One of the things that makes Jupiter special is as a tugboat that operated on the Delaware River for nearly a full century. She was built in 1902 and not retired from service until 1999. Retired from service simply means as an active tugboat because the ship can still sail and is operated by the Philadelphia Ship Preservation Guild. They operate a couple of the museum ships across the river from Battleship New Jersey, right in the same area as Independence Seaport Museum where Olympia and Bakuna are. And like I said, one of the cool things about Jupiter is she is being preserved in such a way that she can still operate. As recently as 2017, the Tug Jupiter has come alongside Battleship New Jersey. But that's not where her connection to the battleship starts. Back in 1999, she is one of the ships that escorted the battleship up the river to her new berth in Camden. But our relationship with Jupiter goes even further back than that. She is, as far as I know, the last tugboat left from this whole gaggle of tugboats you can see in this picture that was there the day Battleship New Jersey was launched to help stop the ship as she careened across the Delaware River. For those of you who don't know, at more than 35,000 tons, on December 7th, 1942, New Jersey was the heaviest ship to be launched from a slipway in the United States up to that time. Not knowing if they could make a ship that heavy slide down the ways, which only have a declivity of 9/16 of an inch per foot, they put over 50 tons of lard on the slipways to help slide the ship down. Long story short, it worked very well. The ship made it into the river and just kept going. It turns out that 50 tons of lard is enough to bake 10.5 million chocolate chip cookies, which is basically one per man in the US Army during World War II. And more than one needs to launch a battleship successfully. New Jersey careened across the Delaware River and ran aground shore first in New Jersey on the opposite side. And Jupiter is one of the many tugs that tried to stop the ship, then pulled her off land and up to the pier so that construction could continue. At that time, Jupiter was already 40 years old, and she has assisted in the launching and dry docking of probably dozens of ships around the Delaware River area, including the battleships Washington, South Dakota, Wisconsin, and New Jersey, and likely more that I'm not even aware of. Unlike the Navy records for the battleship, where when we can find them, we've got pretty good minute-by-minute information, it does not seem like such records exist for Jupiter, and bumping battleships around was just a normal day in the life of a tugboat like that. So we don't have a full list of everyone that she assisted with. But her connection to other museum ships and historically significant vessels is immense, and we're hoping that she will be able to sail back up the Delaware River with us after New Jersey comes out of dry dock. For those of you who haven't heard yet, New Jersey is going back to dry dock number 3, where she was completed in the Philadelphia Navy Yard where she was built. And that's going to happen very soon. And then roughly 2 months after that, we're going back in the water and being towed back to our port. We would love it if Jupiter was able to sail alongside the battleship during that trip and they are currently raising money to get the ship ready to be able to operate again. The pandemic's been hard on everyone, and so they have a fundraiser up, and there's a link to that in the description below if you'd like to support them. We do ask that you keep supporting the Battleship on our dry docking efforts. The more that you give us, the more we can do. But what they need is a drop in the bucket compared to what we need, and we'd be excited to see them participate. One of the coolest things we found out when researching the Tug Jupiter is about the shipyard where she was built, which is one I've never heard of. She was built by Neffy and Levi, which was a pretty revolutionary shipyard in the Philadelphia area, but one, unfortunately, that closes before the Battleship's time period. The shipyard opened up before the Civil War and was really innovative both in the use of screw-type propellers. They actually got John Ericsson's original design for a propeller, and in the use of boilers. They were also fairly innovative in early metal ship construction, and so throughout the Civil War time period, were a pretty successful company. They didn't take many military contracts, however. They had taken one pre-war, and the way the military pays for contracts at this time, which is at a milestone basis, so if you're delayed, you're not getting paid, and then you've got to go to investors for more money. And, of course, if the Navy doesn't accept some aspect of the ship after trials, because they are typically looking for a higher standard than you get in the civilian market, then they won't pay in full. And so it seems like the shipyard had that sort of experience and didn't build many military ships. Fortunately for them, during the Civil War, the Navy bought a ton of ships off the commercial market to convert into gunboats, transports, you name it, for the blockade of the South, which meant that those companies had to go and buy new merchant shipping. Many of them came to Neffy and Levi for the most modern sorts of steam-powered, metal-hulled, and screw-propelled ships. One warship that they did build during the Civil War was as revolutionary as she was backwards. This is one of my absolute favorite ships ever. We've never had the chance to talk about her. I guess more accurately, a boat. That is USS Alligator, the first submarine built for the United States Navy. In those days, submarines were often built out of boilers, because that is like a rounded metal container. And so the South was building the submersible privateer Hunley, and the North decided to respond. So they built this submarine with an airlock in it so that a diver could Navy SEAL style swim out of the submarine and plant a mine. They were specifically looking at the Confederate ironclad Virginia, or better known as Merrimack, as a way of taking her out. The design didn't quite work. Well, they designed the submarine to be oar-powered. Oars typically don't work well when the oar locks are underwater, as they would have to be on a submarine. They used leather to cover the oar lock so that the oars could still move freely. But many of you are probably aware that leather isn't watertight either. So building a submarine with a bunch of holes in it was suboptimal. And, well, Virginia sank herself, so Alligator's career wasn't that long or successful. On a positive note, Alligator did not kill 3 full crew companies the way Hunley did, so depending on how you measure success, she's not the least successful submarine of the period. In 1898, when Neffy retired and then promptly died within days at the age of 82, the company did start to take naval contracts again. In the post-Civil War era, the Navy sold all of those ships that they just bought back to the civilian market, so the company was really suffering, and the Navy was looking to rebuild by the 1890s with new modern steel-hulled ships. The new Navy, represented by USS Olympia, the last of those ships that is left. So, Neffy and Levy started to build naval ships, including the first 3 destroyers, which they delivered late and not to spec, and so lost a lot of money on, and a couple of protected cruisers, which also didn't meet the naval standards, which resulted in them losing money. Much like Neffy had always said when he was running the company, naval contracts were not worth it for them, and they were much more successful as a specialty shop building small high-end vessels like the tugboat Jupiter, built in 1902 near the end of the company's operation. By 1908, just 6 years later, the company had to declare bankruptcy and shut down. While they had once been one of the most modern companies in the world, their failure to modernize over the years really cost them in longevity. At least one of their vessels remains to show the success of their designs. Tug Jupiter is now over 120 years old, and with your support, still able to operate. We hope to see them alongside the Battleship sometime later this spring when we come out of dry dock. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to support the Battleship's dry docking process, and another link if you'd like to support the Philadelphia Ship Preservation Guild, operators of the Tug Jupiter, so that they can get her ready to go by later this spring. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find out about us and our museum. Thanks for watching.